gospel this morning comes to us from Mark, the 9th chapter. Jesus and the disciples went on and passed through Galilee. He did not want anyone to know it, for he was teaching his disciples, saying to them, "The Son of Man is to be betrayed into human hands, and they will kill him. And 3 days after being killed, he will rise again." But they did not understand what he was saying and were afraid to ask him. Then they came to Capernaum, and when he was in the house, he asked them, "What were you arguing about on the way?" But they were silent, for on the way they had argued which one of them was to be the greatest. He sat down, called the 12, and said to them, "Whoever wants to be first must be last of all and servant of all." Then he took a little child and put it among them, and taking it in his arms, he said to them, "Whoever welcomes one such child in my name welcomes me, and whoever welcomes me welcomes not me, but the one who sent me." This is the word of the Lord.
Praise you.
You may be seated. I'd like to invite the children forward. And Jess Easter, our youth minister, has a word for you. I'm just going to go sit down. Where are the Simon kids? Where's Hadley? Where'd everyone go?
Hello, everyone. My friends who have joined me up here, am I the person who normally sits up here with you guys? Who normally sits up here with you? Pastor Jim. Do any of you know my name? Yeah. Jessica. My friends call me Jess, so I think you guys can call me Jess. Is that cool? Yeah. So I'm up here to talk about our stories for today with you all. And something that I was thinking about is that in these stories, people are arguing a lot. People are trying to figure out what's the right way to live, right? And they're doing that by arguing with each other. Do you ever argue with the people that you love? Maybe your friends or your family or your siblings? Yeah. And I know that when I argue, I end up spending a lot of time trying to prove that I'm right. Do you do that too? Sometimes you are right, and that's okay. Sometimes. But even when I am right, or even if I win an argument, I don't usually end up feeling good afterward. Do you feel good after arguing with someone that you love? You feel good after arguing with people that you love? No. I normally end up feeling way, way worse. And I feel like that's kind of the opposite of what we're supposed to be doing. So Jesus, in these stories, he tells the disciples to stop fighting over who's the best, who's right, and to show their goodness by caring for others and welcoming the child. Now, sometimes that can be really hard. I know I end up in fights all too easily. When someone is playing with the toy that I want, right? Or if someone in front of me in line is taking forever to order and I am starving. Someone takes my toy? Yeah. And the disciples are the people who are supposed to show us and teach us how to live and be like Jesus, and they mess up all the time, right? Jesus has to correct them all the time. So even if it's hard work, disciples keep messing up, it's important work to do. And that's why Jesus keeps reminding us. So this week, and during church, I want you to think about it, all of you as well. What are some ways that we can go into the world this week and spread love and care for the people who we don't agree with? Maybe the people that we don't even know. Do you think we can do that? Yeah? Cool. Thank you. You can go ahead and sit back in your pews.
Pai. Ai, eu amo.
Thank you, Jess. What a pleasure it is having you with us. More Jess time downstairs, by the way, after the service is over. If you want to do a meet and greet with her, she's available. Will you join me in prayer? O Lord, may the meditations of my heart and the words of my mouth be acceptable to you, O Lord, my rock and my redeemer. Amen. So I have been studying cuteness for a long time. It's something that I've been studying mostly because I have cute children. It's a burden. It's been placed upon my shoulders, but I gladly bear it. I have discovered that there are some things you can say about cuteness that are scientific. So the one thing that I've discovered is the law of conservation of cute. Let me explain. If you bring a child into a store, say it's a china shop, and they're well behaved, and they're the single child there, they will be doted upon, because that's adorable. If you bring a dozen children into that china shop, the law of conservation of cute lowers the cuteness quotient significantly, okay? So that's the law of conservation of cute. Joking aside, there is a scientific study of cuteness. It's called neotism, I think it's called. And the word neo is important there because cuteness is associated with newness, with youth and youngness. It's not sure, scientists aren't really sure if cuteness is something that has been selected for by natural selection, or if it's more like we have adapted as human beings to find cuteness in certain things. So, for instance, cuteness is having a big old head with gigantic eyes and chubby little cheeks, right? If that's cute because that's what a baby looks like. And babies have to look that way because our heads are the hardest thing in our bodies to grow. So we get a lot of head at first, and our bodies kind of grow into it. And then that's just kind of how it works. So it's really important, however, for the survival of our species that we think that things are cute. It helps us to prioritize the children, right? We put the kids first, and a little bit of that is because we think that they're cute. I will say, as a side note, our brains are wired such that we find cuteness even in species that aren't human, right? And for the same things. Why is a kitten cute? Big eyes, big head, little tiny body with little furry whiskers, and it's adorable, right? Same thing with puppies. So anyway, this has been helpful to dogs and cats in addition to our own future. This is a universal. Every culture, every time, every age, at least all the ones that are successful, have this sense of cuteness and this priority. So imagine my surprise and shock when I read a commentary this week that said the important thing to remember about Israelite culture as Jesus takes this kid and places it amongst the people is that they would have thought of that child as worthless. And I said, really? Let's read on. Yes, in a society that has high infant and child mortality, they didn't put a lot of stake in children until they proved that they were really going to last, that these children were going to live. Until then, this child that Jesus is putting is basically a worthless object. I have decided that I'm going to preach exclusively for the next several weeks on bad takes that I read on commentaries, because that is an extraordinarily stupid thing to say that has no footnote. You can look and see there's no footnote, there's no explanation of that, there's no source. That was just somebody thinking to themselves, I wonder if it's like this, and then putting it on paper. You might ask yourself, Pastor Jim, why do you read bad commentaries? Don't you have any good commentaries? And yes, I have plenty of good commentaries. I love them and I read them, but I am not immune to the algorithm. I like going online and pulling up a bad commentary, getting angry, feeling like outrageous and indignant. I love that feeling. And now here I am, outrageous and indignant about this bad commentary. So why was this said? Why did this commentary person write this? Well, I think that it is actually part of a concerning pattern that has been a part of Western civilization for a long time, and it's othering. The basis, I think, of much of our sin is that we have the ability to other people, to look at them and look at their culture, look at what's going on there and say, that is so different that you must not share fundamental values with me. Therefore, you are not of us. This one is a very familiar othering because in the history of Christian-Jewish relations, the idea that Jews don't love their children, don't love any children, and might be eating our children is something that has been prevalent. And it sounds funny, but my God, that was dangerous. That is the result of a lot of pogroms, a lot of violence, a lot of bloodshed. And it's one of the most fundamental otherings you can do, right? A child is the most sacred and beautiful and important thing on planet Earth. To suggest that somebody else doesn't share that value is to open them up to anything, is to open them up to complete denigration. And they have. Okay, I need to say something real quick. This is an excursus, a brief excursus, but it must be said. Our bishop, when he came into office just recently, his first note out to the congregations was, stay out of politics. November is going to come and go, and if you can just stay out of politics, you'll be doing well, which I think is a great piece of advice. It just so happens that we have a Hope for Haiti festival. We support the Haitian people, and shoot. This is now a political time to be in favor of Haitian people and to be saying loudly and clearly, they don't eat cats and dogs. And we've never once seen that in our communities, and that's not happening. It's a lie, okay? It's a lie, and the folks who have spread the lie have admitted and will say that they know that it's a lie. It's one of the 10 commandments not to lie. Politicians have a very hard time with that commandment. That seems to be all politicians who have ever gotten in office have broken that commandment virtually immediately, okay? So that's one thing. And I'm not as concerned about that as I am about the effects of that sin. The effects have been that we've had bomb threats called in on Springfield schools. We've had disruption of community. There's been violence and threats of violence. The reason why sins are sins is that they cause breakdown in our communities. They have actual consequences. I am concerned about that. What I am most concerned about, actually, is a system of politics that rewards lying, that rewards sinning. And that's probably where we all have the most influence, is to say in our communities that we value the truth and that we will say true things, and even if those true things are uncomfortable or hard, we will admit them to ourselves, and that's where we can actually have our own impact. So in a moment after the announcements, Bill Walker is going to give an update about our Hope for Haiti event, and there's going to be some truth-telling in there about what's really going on in Haiti and what people who flee from Haiti have been fleeing from. And we're going to hear those words, and they're going to move us to action, because that's what we can really do. So if people ask you, why is your church suddenly doing a Haiti event? Is this a political act? We've been doing it for 8 years now, okay? 9 years now. Look at how fast that happens, okay? So, and I want you to stay on message with that when people ask. We'll say we're doing it because we care about the Haitian people. This is bigger than some soundbite in the news. Okay? Excursus finished. So if Jesus has this little child in our midst, and actually Jews, believe it or not, love children the way that all humans do, what is really going on? Well, to a certain extent, what we have is a titleless person, right? It seems that the most obvious thing happening in our service, or in our reading, is that the child doesn't have any honors, hasn't accrued anything, isn't wealthy, doesn't have status. And in many ways, that's how we are to receive God's blessings. Not out of any sense that we deserve it, not out of any sense that we've earned it, not on account of our works, but just out of God's love for us do we receive that blessing. And that is the way in which we interact with the world thereafter. We show the world that radical grace by loving in the same way that we've received love. But what's most important, I think, about today's passage isn't this child or how the child was treated. It was the beginning of it, where Jesus talks about what he's up to and how he is going to be treated. If we have a message to the world, it's this: that the Son of God came to planet Earth, suffered, was crucified, betrayed by his friends, and that was the plan from the start. That God saw that price and said, "You're worth it. I'll go through that because I love you." And so when Christ is resurrected on that third day, that resurrection is a sign for us that we who might also know what it is to be titleless, know what it is to be humiliated, shamed, know what it is to make mistakes too, and to shame others, that we will also experience newness, resurrection, a new and beautiful, abundant life. So like a child, I hope you hear those words today, and with the welcome that you can offer every single person as a child of God, let us go forth this day. Amen.
Amen.